Consider This, a news and information program recorded on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. From the Fireside Lounge in the Milo Bales Student Center, here is your host, Carol Schrader.
Welcome back to the University of Nebraska at Omaha. We begin our 8th season of Consider This with the taping of this show. My guest this week is a UNO alumni, and he is retired Major General Michael Kudlotz. He's held a number of important positions in his history. He was with the Air Force for how many years?
31.
31 years. Among his last duties with the Air Force, he was Director of Operations and Training at the Pentagon, and the folks at Offutt will probably remember him as commander of the 55th Wing out there, among his last jobs. Right now, though, his job is as Federal Security Director for the Transportation Safety Administration. Security Administration. There's too many safeties and securities in this whole issue. And you are in charge of the security of passengers at the Eppley Airfield in Omaha and the Gateway, Sioux Gateway.
Sioux City Gateway, yeah.
You know, we're not exactly the hubs of the universe, but I imagine that you're only as strong as your weakest link.
Well, Omaha is a busy, growing airport. As a matter of fact, we're on course this year to have a record-setting year. We'll probably have over 2 million enplanements this year. So Eppley has become a fairly good-sized airport, and of course Sioux City is smaller and has less traffic. However, as you said, you can get in the system from any small airport in the country, so the procedures all have to be the same.
I was at the Eugene, Oregon airport recently, and I didn't expect to find anything different than, absolute security. But I mean, it's nice to know when you go from airport to airport that it's very consistent.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the beauty of federalizing the screening process since 9/11. All the screeners are trained the same. They have nationwide standards. They all have the same procedures, regulations. They're tested on a regular basis, and they have to go through annual certifications. So when a passenger goes from airport to airport, as you say, they know what to expect through the checkpoint.
And now they're, as of mid-September, they had to get used to a few more things all over the country.
Well,
nothing major, but
the procedures are constantly changing. TSA continuously reviews procedures for the screening of passengers, cargo, baggage, as well as all the security procedures throughout the airport that cover the airport employees, the way the airport runs, the airlines, and the cargo airlines. But the recent procedures were just some small changes. One main one that passengers will notice, they have to take off all their outer garments and put them through security through the X-ray machine.
So that'd be coats, jackets?
Right, warm-up jackets, suit coats, blazers, those types of things. Whereas before, all you had to do was take off your winter coats. And what this allows is for the screener to look at the contour of the passenger and identify anything that might be unusual or out of the ordinary.
Big boxy bulge might be.
That would get their attention. And they have more discretion to refer passengers to secondary screening, where they will test their carry-ons for explosives and also pat the passenger down.
I understand that the computers and other electronic devices they're paying a little more attention to, or has this been all along?
That's been the case pretty much all along.
Now, when you came to Omaha, well, you were in the first round of people appointed. We've got to get federal security directors in every airport, or at least in charge of every airport in the country. And you were getting out of the Air Force, and was this a natural position for you, do you think?
Well, I had made the decision to retire, and I heard about TSA forming up, so I looked into it and was lucky enough to get hired into Omaha, which is where I was coming back to anyway.
How difficult was it, not just for you, but maybe through the whole system to meet deadlines to get this?
Well, I think they hired the first round of federal security directors in May of '02. I came on in July. We had federal mandates, deadlines from Congress of 19 November '02 for taking over the screening process, and 31 December of '02 to perform 100% baggage checks, which had not been done prior to 9/11. So they hired us, sent us to Washington for a week of orientation, and then threw us out in the field. So I showed up here
with a lot of paperwork to follow rules and regulations.
had a lot of slides, a lot of phone numbers, a lot of regulations, as you say, and you had no staff, no budget. You know, you were on your own to start the operation. So we had to get the screeners trained, trained, get the staff hired and trained, find space, office space, screening break room space, all the necessities that the operation required. So,
how different were you able to, since you were rehiring or you were hiring from scratch, but were you able to incorporate some of the screeners that from the private services?
Oh yes, that was a priority, was to give the screeners that were private prior to 9/11 the opportunity to become a federal screener. And we hired quite a few.
I would guess in this part of the country, just given the sort of Midwest ethic, and a lot of people, you know, I've seen them out there for years, and they were pretty trusted individuals, I would guess.
We have very good screeners here. Really a full spectrum of folks, from college-educated people. We had a licensed attorney that wanted to come on and do something for his country, retired businessmen and women that wanted to participate, and they all came, and we constantly get a high number of compliments for our screeners, both in their courtesy and their thoroughness.
You know, looking at the job market today, or have heard certainly, that a lot of people, this is not a political statement, but there's been a lot of jobs that are actually getting less money adjusted for inflation, you know, in the $10 level and all that. You want to think, at least I do, that we're paying screeners a decent salary so that we're getting, you know, some of these people that graduated from college, people that are really sharp. You don't have to have a college education to be really sharp, but sharp, and we won't lose them to someplace else that pays more.
Actually, our turnover is very low compared to the nation. Nationwide screening attrition is about 20 to 25%. We run 10 to 15% here, and of course they're paid a decent salary and get all the benefits that come along with a federal government job.
Well, that would be a change in from the situation before. So I mean, that was a plus. That probably lured a few more people, because when you work for more transient kinds of agencies or private firms, the turnover is often greater because of the lack of benefits or whatnot.
Well, benefits are constantly changing as the economy goes up and down. They're fairly stable in the federal government.
When the big shift started, where right away they started checking everything. I mean, it appeared to me, as someone who never had anything checked really, to suddenly they're going through your underwear. But they've seemed to...
When did they do that?
They seem to have got a system now. I mean, the workers are, I'm not trying to say they're complacent, but they've got a ritual. They keep their eyes open, and I notice they even, because they're so used to doing it now when they go through your carry-on baggage, that they're able to even keep their eyes, you know, open around them, because they're used to this now.
Yeah, well, as you know, there were a lot of things that were prohibited right after 9/11. I won't say there was an overreaction to that, but TSA reviewed that prohibited items list,
and
as
they've
a matter of
changed some
fact,
things.
they've changed some
Carry-on versus being able to check it in.
Right, and you can even go to the TSA website now and
it's
get
very clear. There's a nice
list of all the
Adobe
prohibited
Acrobat
items.
list that you can check out.
And that's constantly being reviewed and changed. You remember the two questions that the airlines asked: have you packed your own bags? Have they been in your possession? Well, those made no sense. And if you hadn't, you'd say you did anyway. So
right. If you were a terrorist, you betcha.
One of the early things TSA did was don't ask those questions anymore. And the prohibited items list has changed over the years to be more realistic and actually identify things that could be a threat.
Well, and things can be put in cargo.
Well, you can
that
put
you
many
check
things in your checked baggage that you cannot carry
Right.
into the cabin of the airplane.
And
That's
then that
correct.
just they put some common sense into it. But there was a lot of worry, and I don't think most people minded the overreaction. They didn't like having something confiscated because they didn't know, but
Actually, the traveling public has really become used to this and understands why we do it, and are very patient and complimentary of the process. We run over 95% approval rating for security and customer service at Epley.
When people are traveling, you know, we just finished the summer rush, and we're going to head into the holiday rush pretty soon. I don't know if this is a lull. You never really have a lull at Epley, but they're
Well, you
pretty
do have
steady.
low points and high points, yeah.
When your family flies, do you feel they're safe?
Oh yes, yeah, absolutely. Matter of fact, my wife's going out to see the grandson later in October, and it's not a problem.
Can we get too
They're-
complacent? I
Well-
don't mean maybe you, but all of us. You know, we were very watchful. We were in fight or flight mode.
And you shouldn't become complacent. Secretary Ridge has asked the public on a regular basis to, maintain vigilance. If you see anything out of the ordinary, report it. And we do get a lot of those reports from the public, both to the police department, the FBI, and to us.
And I know a lot of people may not consider reporting because they look foolish. I remember the situation, was it down in Florida, where a woman saw a car and there were two kind of Arab-looking men in it, and there was some sort of erratic behavior, and they ended up being students on their way to go enroll or register at school. And everybody felt bad. I'm sure that woman felt bad, but
No harm done. They could have been bad guys.
yeah, I mean, it's the one that you worry about, the one that.
And there have been many changes since 9/11, not only the screening process, but the fact that we do now screen 100% of the baggage for explosives. Cockpit doors are reinforced and hardened and kept closed through the whole flight. We have many thousands of air marshals, whereas before 9/11 we had 2 or 3 dozen of them. Lots and lots of procedures, intelligence gathering and sharing. Myself and all the FSDs throughout the country are tied into the Joint Terrorism Task Force, the U.S. Attorney's Anti-Terrorism Task Force. I work on a regular basis with Lieutenant Governor Heinemann, who's in charge of Homeland Security in the state of Nebraska. We share information with all the law enforcement agencies, both local, state, and federal, on both sides of the river. So there's a good information sharing that goes on, and we also get classified intelligence, which allows us to assess the threat to our particular airport.
I know when after 9/11, we really became aware of the fact that baggage was not checked as well, and certainly that cargo baggage, the stuff you check through, no one gave a second thought to it most of the time.
Doing spot checks after 9/11, and then once the federal government took over, we did 100%.
Because my feeling was, well, now they don't think they can get through the X-ray and the metal detectors and everything. So what would be the next logical
Yeah, exactly.
thing?
So be careful what you put in your bags.
I always am. I think my hairspray is probably the most dangerous thing. There was a plan, I don't know if it's enacted yet or recently enacted, for frequent flyers so that they could sort of get clearance isn't the right word, because you military people use that means something special, but some sort of they're on some list, they're double check background so that they can get through.
Yeah, it's called the Trusted Traveler Program, and it's going through a test phase right now. And it's strictly voluntary on the part of the passengers, where they submit their identification and go through a background check. And when they get to the airport, they can go through a special lane for trusted travelers only. It does not relieve you from going through the X-ray or the metal detector, but it will relieve you from having to go through random secondary screenings.
Do you find this, I mean, how different is this than the positions you've held in the Air Force? Obviously, when you were flying all those hours, this is quite different. You're on the ground, you're grounded.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
But I know it was a lot more intense in the military, but can you become complacent now that you've got everything ready to go?
As Secretary Ridge is fond of saying, the terrorists only have to get it right once. We have to be right every day, 24 hours a day. So you can't afford to be complacent. Our screening process is always at its maximum. We don't go up and down with the levels because we're as thorough as we can possibly be right now. We have, since 9/11, put together a staff of regulatory inspectors that both keep track of the procedures that our screeners use, the procedures that the airport uses, the airlines, so they regularly inspect all the entities that are involved in the airport.
Do they test it?
Yes,
do they go
do.
through?
They do tests. For our screeners, on a regular basis, we will put together a suitcase with various materials inside and give it to someone the screeners do not know and have them take it through and run a test that
Someone
way.
that's got a ticket and maybe, or at least a fake ticket. I don't know.
We also have computer-based thread images that come out on the X-ray on a random basis that also test the screeners. And of course our internal affairs organization in Washington goes throughout the airports and tests our screeners.
What?
Screeners also go through an annual certification of all phases that they're involved in, and the screeners at Eppley are both qualified to screen baggage and passengers. So they have to go through both phases of that. Practical tests, written tests, and image testing. And they're going through that right now.
One of the things I noticed at Eppley and a couple of the airports I've been to in the last year is that they call on someone for a second opinion a lot. You know, they see something,
Yeah.
and I mean that was very reassuring to me. They see something on the X-ray that they probably could have just gone through, but they're not afraid to say, would you just look
If
at
they
this.
see
2
something
eyes.
they can't identify or it looks suspicious, they'll have someone come over and check the bag.
Just kind of double
Yeah.
check or.
Well, they will look at the screen and then go check the bag.
Right. But they'll both, they'll bring someone over sometimes to look at it. They're pretty sure, but you
It's
can
part
just
of
hear
that
them
having to
talking.
be right all the time.
Right. It is. So, what is the next? Is there ever a next phase that you see coming on, or what are they talking about? Maybe.
Well, TSA has got a technical organization that goes through and tests various types of technology. You've probably heard about the explosive trace walk-through machine that is being tested at 5 airports today, where the passenger will stand and puffs of air are blown across the body, and then the other side of the machine picks up any explosive traces that are in the air. Those are being tested, and they're going to expand that test in the not too distant future. There's some technology that have James Bond type X-rays where people will walk through them and you can see through the clothing. There are various machines that will test for explosive traces on your boarding passes as you put it through the machine. So they're constantly reviewing technology as to how better to screen passengers and baggage.
They can't get lax on that. I mean, they have, and there's the good thing about the United States is we've got lots of firms that are trying to fill the void. This is a capitalistic country, so the good thing is that they're always thinking of a better mousetrap. We're trying to. So I mean, that does keep us hopefully on the leading edge.
Well, and as I say, TSA's technology department is always looking at those types of things. And contractors know where to go on TSA if they have a better mousetrap.
Oh, well, they hold fairs and all kinds of things, I think. What about the idea that some of the airports, I believe it's 5, are going to test going back to private contracts for screeners?
That test has been going on since 9/11. When TSA federalized the screening process, they identified 5 airports of various sizes to do that private screening. So Kansas City is one. They have contract screeners there that use the same standards and are subjected to the same evaluations as federal screeners.
And I know that, those that believe in less government would like to see us, not have a bazillion federal employees. So that's something that I think that they're going to be at least trying to make that happen, I think, if it
Well,
can.
airports will be allowed next month, or the month of November, to apply to go back to private contract screening. So that process is in place, and they will be able to apply in about another month.
Now, the airports, when they had private screeners, they had to pay for that. They're obviously kicking in some now, but
Well, actually, they were run by the airlines. And the private screening process is done by a contract with the federal government. So the contractor is paid a specific dollar amount, and the screeners have to perform up to federal standards.
I guess the thing that worries me, and you've seen it happen, is that obviously when they're a private company, they have a profit motive. That's the beautiful thing about our system. But you always worry about skimping in training and employment, wages and things like that.
Fortunately, I don't have to worry about that.
Well, no, not yet. Not if Omaha just continues on as it is.
Actually, the airport director is very satisfied with the screening process and at this point has no interest in pursuing the private end of it.
What, as someone who has flown, what, hundreds of hours, maybe thousands
thousands.
of hours? Thousands of hours. Would you want to be a commercial pilot today? I'm not saying would you want to be, but would you worry about being a commercial pilot today in the atmosphere that we have?
No, not at all.
Would you want to be one of them that's carrying guns if you were one?
Myself personally, probably not. But you know, that is a part of the layered defense that TSA has put in place with what they call curb to cockpit security layering, with all the screening processes, the reinforced doors, the air marshals on the airplanes, the armed pilots, are a layered defense against what happened at 9/11.
Well, you know, a wild bullet at 30,000 feet is a little scary, but these pilots are trained if they do carry.
Oh, they're trained. Yes, they're trained by TSA, and the weapons are provided by TSA.
What other things happen, or are you in charge of? The airlines obviously have probably put their personnel, and by that I mean the flight attendants, the pilots, maybe others that are closer to the airplane itself, maybe the people that load baggage. They're out there waving their arms with those flashlights. Do you have any say over that?
From a security standpoint, yes. Everything inside the perimeter of the airport I'm responsible for security. And as I said, we have a regulatory function and an inspection function, and we regularly test those individuals and make sure that they are following the procedures that TSA has sent out in the very large stack of security documents that the airlines, the airport, and all of us are required to comply with.
So they had to ramp up their training of their employees based on
Yeah, there were a lot of
requirements.
procedures that were refined and added after 9/11, and of course the airlines and the airport employees have to comply with those.
You know, once you pass the area where you have to show your ticket and they x-ray you and everything, you wouldn't know it was any different. You know, once you're sort of through that.
Once you're in there and can
Yeah.
relax and read
Yeah.
your newspaper.
I mean, you wouldn't even know.
No, there's no difference here at Eppley, but in many airports you will see a lot less people in there. There are some airports in the country that had shopping malls in that part of the airport,
They now have them out of that.
which
a lot of
non-passengers can no longer get into. So that you will see is a big difference in some airports, but there's not been a change at Eppley. We screen all the contract employees as they go to their places of business within that secure area.
So if you have the little drugstore, the little magazine store that's in that area, they have to also go
Oh yes,
through.
they have to go through screening. Yeah, we screen all their supplies, and we do spot checks on a regular basis to make sure they're not selling prohibited items in those areas.
I wouldn't even have thought of that. I suppose if it can happen and someone can make money, somebody's thought of it, right? That's just the way.
Well, you wouldn't
the
want to
world
be
is.
selling pocket knives or miniature baseball bats in those areas inside the secure
You know, I
area.
never thought about something like that. Remember, I mean, I'd go to Chicago at one time, and of course they have all the Cubs paraphernalia, and they did have little bats at one time, and those are the kinds of things I never would have thought of. I mean, they had to go through sort of a mental thing of what could possibly be a problem.
Yeah, and as I say, we go through the shops, and so does the airport to make sure there aren't any of those types of items in there. You can put them in your checked baggage, but you can't carry them into the cabin of the airplane.
What do you see as you go through your activities every day, and you know that's enough to keep you busy, but the whole issue of security, I mean, you were in national security for 31 years, which
Still
is,
am.
that's true. So security has always been part of your job. The whole issue of national security, public security, homeland security, whatever you want to call it, where do you see this taking us? Are we going to feel always like we are today? Do you think the world has changed forever, as they say?
My personal opinion is yes, it has. and it's going to be a long, long time before we get back to what we would consider any kind of normalcy. There are a lot of very bad people in the world, and the unfortunate part of that is you can't identify who they are just by looking at them, and they're everywhere. So both the traveling public as well as those of us who are responsible for the public security have to keep constantly vigilant. And it's a taxing process, but one that we have to do to maintain the security of the country.
When federal security directors and TSA people talk amongst themselves, what's the general feeling about airports in other parts of the world that bring passengers? Are they as secure? You know, London, Paris, Lisbon, Mexico City?
I really don't have the details on that type of thing, but there are certain security procedures that we go through as an international flight will come into this country. So there are extra procedures that are done.
There's another layer,
Yeah.
so to
I
speak.
remember flying after 9/11. I went to Germany, and I was trying to take a military airplane out of Germany into Russia, and the weather didn't allow it. So after 3 days of trying to get into Russia, I had to come back right away. And so I bought a one-way ticket to Washington Dulles from Germany a day before the flight.
And the one-way ticket even raises questions.
Everybody in that airport laid hands on me. It was very thorough inspections. So
Lesson number 325, if you're going to try something, buy a round-trip ticket, huh? I mean, it's all these little things that we don't think of.
but I can't get into obviously the details of what we do or how we treat international flights, but there are procedures.
Well, I sure want to thank you for being here. Campus has changed a little since we came through here the first time,
Yes, it
hasn't
is. I got back here 2 years ago, and I had a function here at the Student Center. I couldn't find it. Surrounded by buildings. My gosh, the campus has grown.
It certainly has. I want to thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Retired Major General Michael Kudlatz. He is Federal Security Director at Eppley Airfield in Omaha and the Sioux Gateway Airfield in Sioux City. And we thank you for joining us today on Consider
My
This.
pleasure.
Take care.
Thank you.
To view this edition of Consider This or past programs, visit our website at unotv.unomaha.edu. For comments or questions, call 402-554-2516 during regular business hours. Consider This is a production of UNO Television.